Hey YouTube, I've been wanting to do this presentation for a while now on solar versus nuclear power stations, and I want to do a conceptual design of a solar farm that would replace a nuclear power plant in terms of power, energy production, and capacity factor. And you read a lot of articles about the new solar plants that come online and how large their capacity is and how much power they'll produce, and they confuse the items like power, energy production, and capacity factor, or they leave them out. And so hopefully this little conceptual design presentation will give you some better ideas about how much solar it takes to replace a nuclear plant. I have a few examples here. This is the Palo Verde Nuclear Generating Station in Arizona. This is a 4 gigawatt facility, and I have here the McCoy Solar Energy Project, and this is the largest one I could find that has actually been constructed in America, given the research I did, and this is a 250 megawatt site, so 0.25 gigawatts. This conceptual design example, you might wonder why I picked this site. I thought this would be a good comparative site because it's located in the southwestern United States, and that's an area with good solar resources, so we're sort of picked a power plant in a similar geographic location. The nice thing about this particular nuclear power plant is it has a minimal potable water use. So it uses sort of a wastewater and evaporative cooling chillers, as opposed to the conventional nuclear power plant cooling towers. So this has a minimal water usage, so that's an important thing a lot of people don't consider as a benefit to solar and some nuclear plant designs, is the water usage. And this nuclear plant, similar to solar, has no greenhouse gas emissions, so those are key comparative factors. So some things we're going to ignore in this presentation are the upfront costs needed to construct, return on investment, maintenance cost, end-of-life cost, and other environmental externalities. So these are all important, but we're going to ignore them in this presentation for the purposes of just comparing what an equivalent solar farm would look like in terms of energy production compared to a nuclear plant. So the first project is we're going to build a solar farm equal to the Palo Verde in power generation. And what I've done is I've used Google Maps and SketchUp to identify the Palo Verde nuclear site and give a rough dimension of its footprint. So it occupies 1600 meter by 1600 meter area, and it's a 4 gigawatt station. Alright, so I'm going to walk you through just a back of the envelope calculation to determine how many megawatts of solar power we're going to need to get to reach our 4 gigawatt nuclear plant. So we've estimated 1,000 watts per square meter of sunlight. Our area is 1,000 by 1,000 meter square, with a million square meter area, and we've estimated our PV efficiency at 20%, 0.2, and our site efficiency as 0.5. Now that site efficiency is, we're not going to use all of that million square meters. There's going to be some access paths to the solar panels. We're going to have spaces for shading. There's going to be places for the inverter. So there's going to be not every square meter is going to be completely utilized by solar panels. We're going to need to have access to them. So we can approximate the total amount of solar power that we would get out of this 1,000 meter by 1,000 meter space is 100 megawatts. Now again, this is a back of the envelope, just conceptual calculation. And I'm sure that I'll get comments about, oh well, PV efficiency could be 0.225, or the site efficiency could have a better optimization of where we put the solar panels, or maybe we can get up to 0.7. Again, these are rough numbers, and I do try to err on the side of being liberal towards the solar. So, but again, slight changes in these numbers aren't going to affect the overall picture of what I'm going to present for you today. So again, in this slide, I've used SketchUp to create a scale drawing, and I've multiplied that 100 megawatt area by 10, so we effectively have 1 gigawatt of solar power. Of course, we need to be equivalent to Palo Verde, so we need to multiply this by 4s. So now we have an effective 4 gigawatt of solar power. This is a solar array, if constructed, would be approximately 3 miles long and 5 miles wide. And it would provide an equivalent power as the Palo Verde Nuclear Generation Station. So our second project in this conceptual design example is we're going to build a solar farm, but it has to be equal to the Palo Verde station in energy production. So one thing that I think some people outside of the energy community get a little confused about when they're presented with power ratings of solar panels and solar power stations is that they don't realize that a 4 gigawatt solar farm will not produce the same quantity of energy as a 4 gigawatt nuclear power plant. So, and this is because of the duration of the day that the two different plants operate. So with the solar plant, we have the solar stations generating power throughout the hours of the day where there's sunlight, while the nuclear power plant can generate power continuously throughout the day. Now this may fluctuate a little as demand changes, but nuclear can supply power throughout the day unless there's a reason for it to shut down for service or demand reasons. So what we have to remember is that when we hear a number like a 4 gigawatts of nuclear power, we have to compensate for that lack of time that the solar power is on by adding solar capacity. So if we consider our 4 gigawatt solar plant that operates for 7 hours, it'll produce 28 gigawatts of energy per gigawatt hours of energy per day, where a 4 gigawatt nuclear plant could operate 22 hours of the day, producing 88 gigawatt hours per day. So to make these two plants equivalent, we're going to need to increase the size of our solar farm. So our solar power farm will need to be 3 times larger to produce the same amount of energy. So a 12 gigawatt solar power plant will be roughly equivalent to a 4 gigawatt nuclear power plant. So now we've built this solar farm equal to the Palo Verde nuclear station in terms of energy production. So both of these sites can produce roughly 90 gigawatt hours per day of electrical energy, and they possess different maximum power ratings, with the solar farm being able to produce 12 gigawatts and the nuclear plant producing 4 gigawatts, although running continuously. This solar array will be roughly 9 miles long and 5 miles wide, and it will collect all of the energy during the 7-hour period of the day where the sun shines. Alright, the third and final project of our conceptual design of a solar farm is we're going to build a solar farm equal to the Palo Verde in capacity factor as well. So we talked a little bit earlier about how we are going to build a solar array equal to it in power, then expand the solar array so that the two different energy technologies are equivalent in energy production. But now we have this problem that we have all of our solar energy produced during a very short time period in the day. So what we want to do is take this overproduced solar energy and spread it out throughout the day. So we could have 4 gigawatts of nuclear power running continuously. That'll generate our 90 gigawatt hours that we need. Or we can have our solar array rated at 12 gigawatts, only working for 7 hours a day. But in order for it to generate its 90 gigawatt hours, we need to store some of that power. We need approximately 60 gigawatt hours of storage for the AM and PM hours. So to really make these two different energy generation technologies equivalent, we need to have the 12 gigawatts of solar power plus the 60 gigawatts of energy storage to be completely equivalent, sort of a drop-in replacement for a 4 gigawatt nuclear power plant. So I researched some energy storage technologies that are available out there, and one that I found was a container unit that is battery backup energy storage unit, and it looks like the approximate dimensions is a 40-foot long container, can store roughly 2.5 megawatt hours of energy. So we need 60 gigawatts of energy, or 60,000 megawatt hours of energy storage, and from that we can calculate how many containers we're going to need. I have here some of my rough calculations of what the footprint will be of our battery array, and I estimated the length to be about 10 feet and width 40 feet, as specified on the data sheet. And I converted to meters, so this container would have a footprint of approximately 36 meters and square meters. And I divided our 60,000 megawatt hours by the 2.5 megawatt hours the battery units store, and I calculated that we'll need 24,000 of these battery units. So each one with a known footprint area, I calculated the total footprint, and also rounded up because we're going to need some extra space for entryways and access to the battery bank storage. But I estimated roughly 1,000 by 1,000 meter area will be effective for our battery array. And so this is a complete look of our final conceptual design with a solar farm that is roughly equivalent to the Palo Verde Nuclear Plant in terms of electrical energy production. And we have our 12 gigawatt solar farm, our 60 gigawatt hour storage site, and it is compared next to our 4 gigawatt nuclear site. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think, and yeah, leave a comment. What are your thoughts on solar versus nuclear energy?